So this is my art exhibition. The pieces that I've produced, this whole art process was more of a personal journey for me in relation to the fact that I moved from London to Switzerland. And so I initially started my artwork focusing on my heritage, my Ivorian heritage, and also the fact that I lived in London, where there was a lot of West African culture, and so then I produced one of my favorite pieces called Auntie Spice. I really like my use of color. I think it really characterizes and portrays the energy that West Africa has, and the typical sort of West African lady, especially dressed up for special occasion. Further in my work, then I looked more into my own identity, my physical identity, and how I perceived myself and how I presented myself to others. And so I started working on self-portraits, and then that self-portrait became a significant part of my art and led to several different art pieces. My self-portrait is actually one of my favorite pieces because of I think it really shows my skills, my pencil skills and my observational skills. I actually often told myself that I would never actually achieve quite a resemblance, but with this one I did, and I got the proportions right, so I was quite pleased with that. And also just the attitude and that the face has, and the stare. I think it's quite a significant face for me because it's a face that sort of emerged in London, and it's a face that I sort of adapted because of the environment I was in, and it was a face that gave off an attitude but to hide a certain sensitivity.
My exhibition is about my process and my development throughout the DP art course, which is why it's arranged in a chronological order. I started my work about the personal narrative, my past and my memories, but also my relations with family and friends. I then got inspired by Picasso when I started working on my comparative essay. And at this point I started including figurative drawing, and I created the overall theme of the vortex and movement in space. This is my very first piece. It was made for my mom's birthday, and it depicts the beach in Zandvoort in Holland, which is where I was born and where we spent a lot of days with the family. This piece is created out of 19 different sculptures which are made out of plaster. They represent the female body, and every single piece is different with different curves but also different lines in it, which were inspired by Picasso's primitive period. And they represent the fact that every shape is beautiful even though they are very different, and on their own individually they are beautiful, but also as a large piece together representing society.
Right, so the theme for my art exhibition is identity, which I explored through different mediums, through collage, through sculpture, through photography, through more collage, and then some textiles, and using different symbols and using different ways of expressing one's identity, whether that be political, in feminist ways, or self-identity. I'd say that my favorite two pieces would be Bust here, which is a piece that I worked with the feminist identity. So I worked with a lot of Hannah Hoch's work and Frida Kahlo and Cindy Sherman's work, so all feminist artists. And I was looking at the way that they represent females. And so in this piece I was inspired by the Women's March in 2018, which was a protest against the political chaos at the moment and the injustices that are felt by women. So these are all pictures from the protest with different protest signs expressing different opinions and such from women. So the idea for this is I created the bust of a woman using mod rock, and I collaged on all these pictures using kind of an abstract way of cutting it and using different forms and shapes. And to create this kind of like shield-like composition. So it's the female body and it's kind of showing the strength of women and also the fact that women all coming into one to fight against these injustices. So that was the idea behind this one and kind of the inspirations, and it did come from a lot of other pieces that I've done where I did use collage. The other piece is called Humming, and I made it with the laser cutter. Well, that was the final piece. There was a whole process to it. So basically the idea behind that was exploring self-identity. I've always loved tattoos, and I have a few, and I wanted to design my own with the help of a tattoo artist who would obviously tattoo it. But I came up with two symbols which represent my identity. So I have poppies and hummingbird, sorry, which both are symbols that mean a lot to me. And so I wanted to incorporate them in different compositions to decide on the final result. So I went through a lot of process using lino prints and different prints and showing the fragility of it, which then I worked also along with the tattoo artist to then create this. But the final piece that came from it was using the laser cutter to like show the thin lines and the fragility of it on a white background canvas, which is seen in my final piece.
So my DP art theme was the expression of different feels, atmosphere and emotions heard through music or times and things like that. I got inspired by many different artists such as Kandinsky, Felipe Pantone, Shepard Fairey, Paul Klee, Frank Stella, and what I tried to create was a balance of organic and abstract as well as industrial forms in most of my pieces. I tried to use different materials and different styles every time I create a new piece, and I try to incorporate as much as I can what I'm trying to represent in that piece, but in an abstract way, because to me making something abstract is showing it in its purest form. My two favorite pieces in my exhibition are Smog, which is gasoline and acrylic paint mixed together on plastic tarp to create a piece representing the petrol industry. This goes in response to one of Shepard Fairey's pieces called Paint It Black, which was about the oil and water crisis. And my other favorite piece is a piece called Spoil, which was in response to anger in response to the nonsense I read in tabloid newspapers, and it was something which bothered me, so I wanted to create a piece to lash out and deliver the anger into one place. Yeah.
Okay. My artwork is influenced by economics and the economic impact on society and consumerist culture. My work focuses both on the kind of social elements and popular culture of economics, such as like advertising and how manufacturers and producers make a kind of endorse a need for products through celebrities and the use of the idealization of the normal objects to make them wanted, but also looking at the kind of the environmental impacts and other negatives. A lot of my work is quite critical of consumerism rather than supportive of it. My first piece is Got Milk. As I went through over the years, I looked through the whole progression of consumerism, through the whole cycle of it. So Got Milk was the kind of initial stages, looking at the extraction of milk from animals and looking at animal cruelty, as well as mass production. But then I wanted to really hone in on the cultural influence through advertising. You see elements of advertising, such as the slogan "Got Milk," used across America in a milk campaign, as well as the background with the blue skies and green fields seen in a lot of milk advertising. My next piece is later on in the cycle and is my shopping trolley, inspired by the Dada artist, Chinese artist Ai Weiwei, who works in traditional Chinese materials such as bamboo, which is actually the most sustainable material in the world. So I wanted to use such a sustainable material to contradict the symbol of what I see as a symbol of consumerism, which is the shopping trolley, which I think the symbol is that it facilitates shopping. If you can't carry your shopping, you don't buy as much. But this trolley is the chariot of consumerism, and it carries everything.